Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm your host, Gamby, with my co-host, Brandon, and we have not so spicy of takes this time. Last Unsustainable Wednesday was the spiciest we've had in a very, very long time, and we both got feisty with each other. I don't think we'll get as feisty this time, but I do think that there's some good candidates for Unsustainable. So we'll start, as always, with Unsustainably High, and Brandon will kick us off.
So my first one's going to be Nate Schmidt, D, 14% over in Vegas. Lots of people looking at him as soon as he was essentially announced that he was coming back from his injury. And I'm kind of confused as to why. He's been historically a 40-point defenseman or so with pretty bad peripherals. And we've already seen, even with him back, that he's not really going to get that power play shot that he was getting a little bit of last season, at least. It's still Theodore's game, so I don't really see the appeal of him. Now, he does have 2 points in 3 games so far, so maybe that's kind of making people excited, but nothing else is super impressive. His shot pace is up a little bit, but I mean, you're talking about 3 games, so I don't see why that would really be the case. I feel like it's too early to be in on Schmidt. I just feel like I don't understand what people are seeing in him, unless a 40 to 45 point guy, it's decent for defense, is good for you, but he's likely, we're going to see the same type of paces that we saw last season, in that 100 and something, below 200 shots and pretty bad hits and okay blocks. So if that works for you, then that's okay. But I think people are seeing a player that isn't there for some reason.
Yeah, I think along those same veins, my next one here is Michael Kempny. And I think that the issue here is that you see a guy like Kempny who's gone off and he's currently point per game. And I think people are there's so many defensive woes at the moment. Gostisbehere underwhelming, Subban underwhelming, Gustafsson underwhelming, Klingberg underwhelming, Carlson, all these defensemen, right? That I think that anytime someone sees a defenseman get points, they freak out and are immediately like, oh my God, I have to grab that defenseman immediately. It's better than what I have, right? He's getting points at least. And so I think people are very quick to jump on any defenseman that's kind of getting points at the moment, which I guess is somewhat fun. Like, I get it. I get the frustration and the seeing it and wanting to react. That's good. Being proactive is good. The issue is with a guy, especially like Kempny, his shooting percentage at the moment on the season is 30%. His on-ice shooting percentage is 25%. His on-ice shooting percentage is 25%. I have to say that
sounds
twice.
Like Schmaltz.
Yeah, sounds like Schmaltz. Sounds like a little James Neal or some players over on Edmonton. And the other thing with him is I've seen people say, oh, well, I'm picking him up for his blocks. But his block pace and his hit pace is actually down from last year. And so there's not really much there. And on top of that, he's playing all 5-on-5 minutes. And I get he's paired with Carlson. So that's, a lot of people are like, oh, well, Carlson's, going to bring up his points. But he was with Carlson last year and he got like a 25-point pace. His deployment hasn't changed from last year. The only thing that's changed is his on-ice shooting percentage and his own shooting percentage. I think at best you're looking at a 30, 35-point defenseman with somewhat okay peripherals, not even that good. I think that Michael Kempny is a fantastic streamer option. Personally, I love his off nights and everything, and he is, last year I used him a lot for streaming options, but he is not even close to a long-term defenseman option.
Right. This happened last season. I remember where he had 2 or 3 weeks in a row where he played pretty well, but needless to say, it's nothing to be too excited about. All right, my next one is Connor Garland. So we're recording this on Tuesday night, and he has an assist in this game. I don't know why, but here we go. He's playing like 12 minutes a game, and he reminds me a lot of Vrana. He puts up a crazy shot pace despite the fact he did this last season too, to be fair. Despite the fact that he's not really getting much ice time, his shots per 60 are super, super high relative to other players in the league. And it makes me wonder what would happen if he actually did get an increase in ice time. The only way he's able to do that is because they're giving him high offensive zone starts. That's a good thing, but they're actually down from last season. And last season, his point pace was like mid 50s. I feel like even that feels a little high for a guy that plays 12 minutes. So it just seems to me that his numbers are just way inflated. He's 100% IPP on the week, but that doesn't really matter that much because he's only got 1 point in 3 games, not including the one on Tuesday here. But a guy that plays low power play time, only 12 minutes a game, and doesn't really get you much beyond, well, he does get you the shots. So there is that, but don't look at him past maybe a short streamer option. He's not going to have a long-term value unless he actually gets the ice time, which I don't think that he's going to get in Arizona. Although he should. I mean, he's proving his worth, but I don't know. He just doesn't seem to be getting it for whatever reason.
Yeah, a lot, like you said, reminds me of Schmaltz.
Schmaltz and Vrana.
Yeah, and Vrana, who, by the way, is my next one here. So we did a hot hands on Jacob Vrana just recently. So if you haven't watched that, go watch or listen to that for more detail on what is up with Vrana, because there's a lot of things that don't make any sense. But I'll give you a very quick gist here of why he's unsustainably high. 20% shooting on the season, 38% over his last 3 games, including his hat trick, and his on-ice shooting percentage is currently 15%. The other thing to note with Vrana that's very important is that his shot pace is up to ridiculous amounts. I think it's like 230, I think, at the moment is his shot pace. And he's only playing 13 to 14 minutes a night. And with minutes like that, you normally can't shoot at that pace. So his shot pace is ridiculously unsustainable. So when you see people out there saying, he'll get 40 goals or something like that, it's just not possible unless his minutes come up. It's nearly impossible. And not even nearly impossible. It's straight up is impossible with the amount of power play time he's getting and the even strength ice time. And the problem is that there's just not ice time to give. He's not going to take time from that top line with Ovechkin there on the left wing. And on the power play, he's obviously not going to get a spot either. And so there's a hard cap on Vrana's ceiling. And quite frankly, what you're seeing right now is too unsustainable. I think he'll come way down. And I think you'll see a 25 to 30 goal guy, potentially, if he keeps the shooting up, and he's a good streamer option. He's a very, very good streamer option right now who could be a streamer or a hot hand for like 2-3 weeks. And then after that, you should be prepared to drop if his shooting drops or if just his shooting percentage comes back down to earth.
Yeah, definitely agree. Vrana and Garland are essentially the same player to me. Both weirdly high shots per 60, but not enough 60, essentially, not enough ice time per game to really make any of that seem like it should be sustainable. It just can't be. And because of that, the paces, both in shot production and goal scoring that we're seeing from both those players are very likely to go down. All right, my next one is Nick Bonino. Remember him?
Yeah.
He's being added a lot. He's a center, 15%. He plays for Nashville. For those of you that have been around long enough, I swear I've seen him in 12 jerseys or something. But anyway, he plays for Nashville. And he's been doing pretty well lately. Over his last week, he has 5 points. And they're all goals. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. He's shooting 25% of the season, 30% in the last week. He is not he is, I guess, a decent shot. He shot at 14% last season. He doesn't have a bad shot. I'll give him that. But he doesn't have the deployment to do what he's doing right now. He is a defensive zone player. They like to play him defensively. He gets 23% offensive zone starts this season. That's down from 31% last season. So that means when they're not starting him in the neutral zone, they're they're vastly starting him in his own zone as they see him as a defensive asset more than an offensive one, which is typical of third lines. So he is a third line center. He's not going to go anywhere from being a third line center. He plays decent minutes for a third line center. So that might lead you to think, oh, there's something here. His, good shot pace that he has going right now is sustainable. It doesn't appear that way to me. He does have 12 points in 15 games, and I get why people are adding him, but the rest of the numbers, the deployment especially, just leads me to think that despite the fact he gets good ice time and he's got good shot production this season so far, we're going to see things go back to where they were, as he's going to get hemmed in the zone more often than not, just because of the nature of starting your shifts in the defensive zone. So if you want to ride, but I honestly wouldn't even suggest streaming him. I just don't buy it. I think that he is still going to be utilized as a defensive player, and he just randomly gets hat tricks sometimes. This happened a couple of years ago. Bonino just gets a random hat trick. I think he was on Pittsburgh at the time, and then he got picked up a bunch and did okay for like a minute, and then nobody heard from him in 2 years. And here we are again.
He reminds me of Blake Coleman without the peripherals.
Yeah, the rando hat trick guy.
Rando hat tricks and points, a very heavy defensive zone start deployment. People will think, oh my God, this is his time. And every time it's like, no, he has a role to play. My last one here is going to be Andrei Svechnikov. Not that, he is good. He's going to be fantastic, but some stuff right now is just a little bit silly. His shooting on the season is 14%, which, look, he shot at 10% last year. He's known for being a shooter. And so 14% actually isn't that crazy, but just compared to last year, it's high. And so I'd say I'm assuming more somewhere in the middle. From a shooting perspective, and his on-ice shooting percentage is the more alarming thing at 15.5%. So I would expect that on-ice shooting percentage to come down, so his assists will come down as well from that. So I think that's the one thing I'm watching is the on-ice shooting percentage with Svechnikov, and when that comes down more to like a reasonable, say 10%, that's going to be quite a bit of assists chopped off.
Yeah, I still like Svech a lot. I really like that he's getting more power play time than previously.
Yeah, the power play time is huge, and I think that that's where I see that there's a lot of potential for him, and he could keep this up. But right now, he's on like an 88-point pace, I think, and I just don't see that continuing. I think he's more this year of like a 60 to 70-point guy.
Yeah, he's a good sell high candidate.
Yeah.
Although it's going to be hard to replace some of his peripherals, so just know that going into it.
Like when you target somebody, I would target a buy low that has point upside, but also has pretty good point coverage or peripheral coverage. Sorry. For example, Blake Wheeler.
For Cats leagues. All right, moving on to Unsustainably Low. My first one is Brock Nelson, actually, who I ragged on you about pretty recently. Center left wing, 37%. We're seeing an increase in time on ice for him. He gets middle of the pack offensive zone starts, so he's not being hemmed into his own zone all the time like we're going to see from Bonino. His shot pace is up from last year. He's up at shooting 3 times a game, which is pretty much just what you want. A little bit less than that, but essentially 3 times per game. His shooting percentage is actually below last season, so that feels good. Everything is pretty much in line for a good season from him. His on ice is slightly high, but it's just this last week or so that he hasn't been able to find the points. It might have something to do with the little bit of line shifting that's been going on over there. He lost Bailey from one of his wings, but Bailey's been on all 3 lines, all 3 top lines, top 6 or top 9 lines at this point. So I don't really think that he was too much of a catalyst. And he actually is getting, they run a 1A, 1B over there now as far as power play time. So he gets pretty decent power play percentage. I don't think he's like I think he's like a 55 to 60 point guy. So just put that in your head when I'm talking about what to expect from Brock Nelson. I don't think he's going to fall off completely. I don't think what we've seen over the last week and change are what to expect from him going forward. But I also don't think he's going to be some like huge grab that is going to win you your league or anything.
Yep. My first one here is going to be Blake Wheeler. A lot of people frustrated with him, and understandably so. He's not producing in the part where you probably drafted him for, which is assists at the moment. His shooting percentage is actually fine at the moment. It's sustainable. And his shooting is actually up to career high numbers, which is fantastic. You'd love to see that from a guy like Blake Wheeler. The issue for those assists is that his IPP is ridiculously low at 42% versus 73% last year. So he's not factoring into a lot of the points that are happening on the ice. On top of that, the on-ice shooting percentage is 10% versus 12% last year. But that's not that bad, actually. And all that tells me is that the Winnipeg Jets are scoring decently while he's on the ice. Pretty good at 10%. He's just not factoring in as much. And I think the tide will turn there in time. I'm not worried about that. His hit pace is up. His block pace is up. To me, Blake Wheeler is, if someone is truly frustrated with him, I would maybe knock on the door and just see what their asking price is, because I don't really see anything in Blake Wheeler at the moment that would make me be super, super cautious. And to me, would be a prime buy low candidate.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. My second one rather, is Jeff Carter. Now, I'm mentioning him even though he just came off of a 2-goal game recently, but more because prior to that, there was a stretch of nothing really happening. It looked like he was bringing something together finally, especially with the shot totals lately. But then it slowed down, not the shots, but just the point production. But I think there's some encouraging things going on here. The biggest one that I'd like to mention is he's playing top line. They moved him, they replaced Dustin Brown on the right wing. So we've got Carter and Kopitar on the same line, which is pretty dangerous. And his shooting is still up. Like his shot pace on the season is 60% higher than last season, and his shot pace over the last week is even higher than that. So he's shooting, and I think this might just be because he's been moved over to the wing. We saw a sort of similar thing happen with Giroux when he got moved to the wing. He's back center now, and I hate that because he had his breakout year when he's moved to the wing. He moves to the wing, goes from a 60-point season to a 100-point season. It was pretty crazy. And I wanted, I'm not obviously not going to predict that for Jeff Carter, but there's something about it. It's the wing position certainly seems to be helping his shot totals, and that might have something to do with coaching change as well. And similar to what we mentioned about Getzlav on Monday, they may just want him to play a little bit differently, and I'm sure Carter's fine with taking more shots. So I like that he's getting decent offensive zone starts, and all of his numbers look either slightly lower than I expect or in line. So, he's actually due another goal at this point sooner or later, and the assists just are not there for no real reason I can think of. The only thing I'd like to see from him is him to get top power play, but I do actually think that'll happen at some point, especially if he's able to click with Kopitar at even strength, which still hasn't really happened all that much yet, but his ice time is increasing game over game. So really looking forward to see what Carter can do. And at 9% in the center right wing eligibility, he should be higher owned, in my opinion.
My next one, I know we've talked about this guy so much, but every way you look at it, it just doesn't make sense. It's Timo Meier.
Yep, he's my next one too.
It's crazy to me that he is being dropped as much as he is. I mean, I get the frustration, and I think it's very, very warranted. But when you look at what's going on with Timo Meier, it genuinely just flabbergasts me. I do not get it. It's one of the ones that I think has me the most confused of the 4 years we've been doing the podcast in terms of just what is going on. And it's both confusion and so much confidence that he's going to turn it around. He looks so good. He should have like 11 points right now, and he has 3. He's 4th in scoring chances for while he's on the ice at 5-on-5 for the Sharks. That's really good. Like, he's been one of their best skaters at generating offense. 4.5% on ice shooting with an 80% IPP. So he's factored into every point that's happened on the ice, almost every point. The problem is there just haven't been many points on the ice. And that's so frustrating because that means he's playing well. It's just there's not many points to be had. And the good thing of him being, the reason I mentioned him being 4th in scoring chances for, means that if those shots were going in at a normal rate, he actually would be one of the highest point getters on the Sharks simply because he's on the ice for the most scoring chances for, if that shooting percentage was normal. Meanwhile, you look at a guy like Evander Kane who has a 12.5% on ice shooting. It's just like, it's the tale of two Sharks. And then his own shooting percentage right now is at 4.7 versus 12% last year. It's just it's the most confusing, frustrating thing I've seen. I have him in all my money leagues now. I've completely bought into this buy low. I can't imagine this continues for that long because it's not so much about deployment anymore or anything. It's just genuinely nothing going right for him. He must be at this moment perhaps the most unluckiest player in the league in terms of fantasy. So Brandon also had Timo Meier, and that was his last one. So I'm going to go to my last one here, which is Cam Atkinson. A lot of people dropping him, a lot of people frustrated. And this is another guy this is the funny thing with Cam Atkinson. When I see people's reasoning for drop him, people say, oh, can I drop Cam Atkinson? He's not going to be as good this year because Panarin's not there. And I can't help but look at my screen and be like, what? What are you talking about? That's just straight up not true. Sure, he might be on the ice for less scoring chances for, but his shot pace is up from last year. His shots per 60 are up, and shots per 60 are largely a line mate. As much as they control it, it also has to do with line mates and scoring opportunities. And so that's up. So he's had more offense in terms of himself generating it. His on-ice shooting percentage is 6.3% versus 11.3%. That can factor in to the Panarin thing, but even then I'd expect an on-ice shooting percentage of more like 9% versus the 6% that is currently happening. His own shooting percentage is 5.6%, which is ridiculously low compared to his career average. His IPP is right in line as well, so somewhat similar to Timo Meier, where when those points start coming in, he will factor into those points. So to me, Cam Atkinson is a guy who scored 40 last year, 41, and I still see a path, easily a path to 30 goals this year, if not more, and solid assists to back that up. And so sure, maybe he's, only a 50-point guy this year, 55-point guy, but he's probably a 30, 35 goal scorer, more likely than not. And that's worth a lot in most leagues. In most leagues, I'll take a goal scorer like that. Those are really, really hard to find, especially on the wire. And so if he's on your wire, sure, you can wait a little bit, I think. And the whole Columbus sucks plus Panarin not being there will leave him on the wire longer. So you can sit and wait. But that being said, be quick to pick him up because genuinely, he's a guy who to me is extremely valuable just for his goals. And I don't see what other people are seeing in terms of, or just thinking in terms of him sucking just because Panarin's not there.
All right, moving on to Sustainably High. My first one is Joel Armia. Yep. So he is right wing. He's all the way up to 36%. So I didn't realize how many people had bought in on him. Now his goals are a little high, but I think that's balanced by the fact that I think his assists are a little low. His on ice shooting is also a little high. So there's some red flags off the bat, but he's also got that offensive zone start we've been talking about. He's seeing a lot more power play time on ice this season and just regular time on ice. He's seeing more of that too. He's playing about 17 minutes, up from a little bit below 60 minutes last season. Shooting, he's doing the things you want him to do, basically. Now, again, I do think what you're going to see is a little bit of decrease in goals and an increase in assists, but I like his line. I like his deployment, and I like his hits. So he's more of a banger guy. I don't think I would want him in a regular. I don't even know if I'd like him that much in a points league. It kind of depends on how they're broken down. But in a Cats league, I think he still has pretty good value. He's not necessarily somebody you need to hang on to, but just somebody that I don't think you should totally forget about him as a streamer option. I don't think that the fire has totally gone out with him.
My first Sustainably High guy is Kyle Connor. Back to the top line, 21 minutes of average time on ice in his last 3 games, 8% shooting versus 15% last year. Meet in the middle, and let's say he's a 12% guy. Cool. He's a little bit under at the moment, but not by much. His on-ice shooting percentage is only 8.4% compared to 12% last year, and he's been playing really well, and those are all, numbers that should come up at some point. And so to me, Kyle Connor is a guy who 100% is Sustainably High. He has that left wing spot, which is a little harder to find. And so I definitely buying in on Kyle Connor and holding.
Yeah, he was on my list too. He's looking really good lately.
Yeah.
My last one here is actually Connor Brown, which I can't believe.
Yeah, I had him too.
Yeah, he's left wing, right wing, 9%. Now again, just because I'm calling this guy Sustainably High, and this goes for Armia too, I'm not saying pick him up immediately in all pools. What I'm saying is he's a great streamer option. He's probably going to continue to be a great streamer option. And if you do stream him, he's not necessarily a guy you have to drop unless you have another move you want to make coming into the next week. Ottawa is interesting in that way. If the heavy game slates from this week don't affect you, if you were able to stream a Duclair or a Connor Brown, Ottawa follows through with a nice season, or a nice week next week as well. So he could be a guy to grab now and be able to hold for 2 weeks, which is a nice little change so that you can stream elsewhere and maximize your starts in a different way. The big obvious thing to note here is his 50% increase in time on ice. And that's he's on Ottawa now. There's not a lot of room on the Leafs, but there's plenty of room on the Sens. So we're seeing him go from a 13 to 14 minute guy to a 20 to 22 minute guy.
Ridiculous.
This reminds me of Nemesnikov, right?
Yep.
They're basically doing the same thing. They're not necessarily studs, neither of these guys, but they're weirdly the veterans on this team, kind of, which is weird. But so he's getting just that's enough. He's kind of Bonino like, I guess, in that he's getting a decent amount of defensive zone starts, but his time on ice is so high, and just they don't really have many other people to rely on. And he's also getting a good amount more power play time than Bonino does. So there's a path to success for him. His on ice shooting, despite the fact that he's nearly point per game, is actually pretty reasonable at 11%. So everything that he's doing, it's all in line. His expected goals are 2.33. He actually has 2 goals. He's primarily getting primary assists as opposed to secondary. Everything looks like a player that should be doing what they're doing here. And that's what I like to see out of Connor Brown. Now, again, he's not somebody I'm not even rostering him in any leagues right now, but he's on my radar, him and Duclair, for different reasons, but they're both on my radar for guys that I'll roster on weeks when I can benefit from the Senators' schedule.
So because you took Connor Brown from me, I'll go into my last one, and that's David Perron on the St. Louis Blues. I love his deployment and his shooting this year. Both are up. He shot at 21% last year, if I round up, which is pretty insane. And this year he's at 19%. And so on one hand, crazy unsustainable, but he did do it last year. So I don't know. Maybe this is actually going to happen again. I think over a full 82 game season, though, I don't think he stays at 19, maybe 15. 14-ish is more reasonable for him. But either way, his on-ice shooting percentage is also high, but I like his opportunities and really nothing a little bit of regression can't fix. So I'd see him more as like a probably 65 to 70 point guy-ish for David Perron for rest of season, especially with Tarasenko being out. I think that's kind of where I place David Perron. To me, he's sustainably high, just kind of good guy. He got, I think, 60, or he was on like a 62 point pace, I think, last year, something like that. So I think around 10 points more than that, or 8 to 10 points is reasonable.
Moving to Sustainably Low, my first player is Dylan Strome.
Yep.
Center 28%. He's in an interesting position because it's hard to tell what is going on with him, but it seems like a lot of people have gotten the message already. I actually thought his ownership was going to be much higher than this, but he's seeing a little bit less ice time to his not really high ice time to begin with last season. He was always a guy that if he's not getting points, he's not getting you anything, and right now he's not getting you points, so he's not getting you anything. The thing is, Strome's situation can change at like the drop of a hat. If you see Kane and DeBrincat as his wings again, I immediately like him again, but we've seen him playing wing. We've seen him being on the fourth line on a different wing. We've seen him play all 3 forward positions at this point, center, left wing, and right wing. And I don't really know why. I feel like they had something going with DeBrincat and Strome, and we're not seeing that anymore. And actually, you know what? They may have put them back together recently, but regardless, it's changing so much that it reminds me of the Dow situation where I don't know how players can build chemistry if they're being shifted all the time. But regardless, it's all coming down as bad news for Strome. And I really did not want to see that decrease in ice time, considering he already has low ice time. So now he's below 16 minutes a game. He does get decent offensive zone starts, but it's not going to matter if he doesn't have wings to back him up. And he's not on that top power play anymore. So
he's useless. Drop him.
He got so much of his value last season from being on that top power play and making things happen. And, he's got no power play points this season. So,
yeah. My first one's going to be easy. Dustin Byfuglien. Yes, I know. Before you tell me he's not even in the league, how can he be sustainably low? It's because he had surgery on his ankle. Even if he came back, it was going to take some time for him to get back to normal, I guess, and back to NHL game ready shape. So, yeah, stop holding. Just drop him. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. End of story.
We actually finally dropped him in our league, and that was in a league where we could actually stash a suspended player, which is very unusual.
Yeah.
So if you can't stash him, like, definitely drop him.
Yeah,
if you have room to stash him, then like whatever, I guess. But I wouldn't. If I had somebody else I wanted to stash, I would drop him.
Yep.
Okay, my next one is Josh Anderson. Actually, right wing 20%. I did not expect to see him on this list. Josh Anderson has always been a Cats League dream because of his crazy production. He basically puts up like not elite, but higher end numbers in most of the categories you need in a banger league. He gets good shots. He got, about 3 shots a game last season. And that's usually the ballpark of like an elite shooter for production wise. If they're getting 3 shots a game, they're at the upper echelons. And those are the guys I try to target in leagues that count shots. He's dropped down significantly from that. He's down to about 160 shot pace, and that's dropping even more as we get to, the last week or so. His hits are also coming down. And this is all with his ice time slightly increasing. So I don't know what's going on, but I have a feeling that because of I don't think he's over whatever that injury was. Is my take on this whole thing. I think he's playing hurt, and that's obviously not going to help. And I don't really know what else there is to say about that. I don't think it's going to get better. I dropped him in the leagues I had him. If you're talking about a peripheral guy that has a little bit of point upside, you're hoping for a 50-point player with great peripherals, and what you're getting is a 20-point player with very mediocre peripherals. It's just not worth it.
My next one here is going to be Clayton Keller. He has been, I get he scored, so we're recording this Tuesday night, like Brandon said. He scored tonight off Schmaltz and Garland, of course. Anything Schmaltz touches turns to gold, no matter how much ice time you give him. Man.
Play with Schmaltz and you're going to get points for no reason.
It's ridiculous. It's insane. But look, Clayton Keller, his ice time is down. Point pace is actually up from last year. Amazing, right? Like, oh my God, his point pace is up from 47. So
he was bad last year.
So that's not good. His point pace is currently 53. So it's nothing exciting. He should be excited about a higher point pace, but when it comes to Clayton Keller, it's just not enough. His shooting percentage is low, but he only shot at 7% last year. So really there's not much to be excited for there, even if it does come back to normal. It's kind of like, okay, I guess 7% is really nothing to get excited about at all. On top of that, his on-ice shooting percentage is also really low. So his IPP is high, but his on-ice shooting percentage is fine simply because Arizona doesn't have that high of a shooting percentage in general. And Clayton Keller never really has had a good on-ice shooting percentage in the past. And so even if his IPP is high, there just aren't that many goals that go in while he's on the ice. Power play time is actually down from last year. In my opinion, he's a guy with a 55-point ceiling. He was dropped in my points league, and he's still sitting on the wire. And that's a left wing, right wing that no one's touching.
My last one, I think it makes me upset to mention this player. I think it's going to make a lot of other people upset that I'm mentioning him. But I think when I say his name, you're going to understand that it's coming. It's Matt Dumba.
Wow.
Yeah, D 85%. And I don't want to, this reminds me of when I mentioned Couturier in the same section earlier in the season. I don't want to like make people think that they need to drop him because I do see a lot of that. I'm not saying drop Matt Dumba. I'm saying we need to reevaluate what we expected from Matt Dumba this season. I think what we saw last season was a 32 game great stretch for Matt Dumba. 22 points, bunch of goals, great power play points, and none of it made any sense. That's kind of the big problem. He had 12 power play points in 32 games. That it looked like he was going to go full Yandel on us and come up with like really great numbers and back him up with a more even strength than we saw from Yandel. He had a good hits pace. He had a good blocks pace. He had a good shot pace. Everything was up year over year. Now, what we're seeing this year so far are basically a regression to his prior years from shot pace and even hits and block pace. He's basically just doing what he's always done, and last year may have been an anomaly. So there still is the upside of him playing top power play, although Brad Hunt is also there, and he, for whatever reason, seems to be pretty good as a power play quarterback. So he may be taking some of the thunder from Dumba, and has been getting power play points where Dumba has not. So I obviously I don't think that I think he's going to get more than his point pace right now, which is 35. But I think a lot of us, including myself, came into the I probably said that wrong. That's probably including me. Came into this season expecting something like a 55-point Dumba. And I think what's more reasonable is something like a 45 to 50-point Dumba. And I think we may have been thinking 220 shots or something, right? That was a little bit less than the pace he was doing last season, but, it sounded reasonable. That might not be good either. We might be seeing more like what he's done before, 170, 180 shots. And then his hits and blocks are still going to be decent. I actually think his blocks will probably go up a bit from where he's at. I think he's going to sit at around 100 blocks, and we'll probably see him around 130 to 150 hits. So he's still going to be able to pull up some of the peripherals there. I don't know what to expect from power play at this point. He has 3 power play points, so he does have half of his points on the power play at the moment, but needs to get a little bit more going there. Needs a little bit more. I would like to see that top unit, if you want to call it that, deployed a little bit more often, but he still has enough opportunities to make something happen there. But I just think that probably the draft position that you got him at in most leagues was a little higher than maybe you should have. And that goes for me as well. I drafted him in a handful of leagues, and I would assume I've taken him too high. So just this kind of becomes a larger point about how you evaluate players. We're already deep enough into the season that you can't directly tie a player's value to the draft position anymore. You have to be realistic and start kind of re-projecting your players and thinking, where would you draft them now if you were drafting again? And Dumba would slide down the list a little bit for me, but I still think he's very rosterable, especially in Bangers Cats leagues.
Yeah, I think that this is one thing that we talk about a lot when we put players on these lists is we'll say we're not necessarily saying drop them. We're just saying recalibrate your expectations. And that's really important because it comes down to how do you value a player? If there's 2 ways you can handle a slumping player, in my opinion. There's frustration and doing things like dropping or being kind of reactionary. And then there's the secondary option, which is to recalibrate is what I call it. And when you recalibrate, all you're doing is saying, okay, hold on. So I thought this player was going to be worth 50 Dumbas, but really they're only worth 25 Dumbas. And so now that I've recalibrated that, I can say, okay, you know what? Let me see if I can find someone who values him at 1 full Dumba. And if you can find someone who values him at a whole Dumba, well, then now you've made out okay. And that's really what recalibrating is realizing where maybe you went wrong, but where maybe you made the right decision at the time with the information that was given. Can you find somebody who saw it like you did in the past still, right? And that's how you make out. And if you don't get that, then fine. Just recalibrate it and look at your team and say, okay, is this actually worth it to me or not? And that's normally a much smarter way of handling slumping players than by just dropping or doing anything really reactionary. My next one here is Andre Burakovsky. The Bura craze is over. He's currently on pace for 1 whole Dumba, which is around 50 points. So I just love that you said that. A 50-point Dumba. No. He's a 25-point Dumba. That's gonna be my new metric of points. How many Dumbas are they worth? It's kind of like at the beginning of the season when everyone used LeBanc as a measuring stick for contracts. Anyways, Burakovsky, it was a flash in the pan, like we had said. Numbers are still up compared to last season, of course, but shooting percentage is down over the last 3 games. He's kind of regressed back to his normal paces. His shot pace is still up a little bit, which is nice, but those minutes stay low, and that's really the thing. And his power play percentage is still pretty low. So I wouldn't hope for too much from Burakovsky. And this is all with, players. And I would argue that with Burakovsky, the injuries actually don't help him. The injuries hurt him, in my opinion, in some regard. Most of the focus now doesn't necessarily need to be on that top line defensively. You can kind of spread it out and say, let's just swamp Colorado entirely. Maybe just bury him in an avalanche. I don't know. And now it makes it much harder for guys like Burakovsky to do stuff because they get a little bit more attention. And honestly, it's such a line shuffle there. They don't know what they're doing with the injuries that it's no guarantee where exactly Burakovsky even ends up in any given game. So right now, I can't really advocate for him. So for me, he's a sustainably low. And there you go. That is the Unsustainable Wednesday episode. Like I said, not as spicy, but some good discussions, I think. So I think keep in mind, especially as we get deeper into the season here, keep really in mind that recalibrating mindset that I'm talking about, where when a player is doing poorly, evaluate it and recalibrate your expectations and use that to your advantage in trades. It's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to have made a wrong decision with the right information at the time. And if you can realize that and adjust and maybe take advantage of that, then you'll make out okay. Other than that, we will catch you for the weekend preview on Friday. Thanks for listening.
Yep, thanks for listening.